All right. Thank you, Detective. You may step down. And you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Sergeant Jason Page.
Judge, we're gonna, just to make the court aware, we've got to switch exhibits here, so we're gonna do that now while
That's fine.
the witness is approaching.
Witness sworn.
Your Honor, if I promise to speak up, is it okay if I stand over here?
Sure.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Jason Page.
Where are you employed?
With the Indiana State Police.
Could you spell your first and last name for me?
JSONPAGE.
And how long have you been an Indiana State Police officer?
24 years.
And what is your current assignment?
I've been a crime scene investigator for 16 years.
When you began with the state police, did you attend the academy?
I did.
What's the name of that academy?
The Indiana Law Enforcement Academy.
And did you complete that training?
I did.
And what was your first assignment?
I was a road trooper assigned to the Peru Post.
The Peru Post?
Yes.
How long were you a road trooper?
Approximately a year and a half.
What was your next assignment?
I was a detective at the Peru Post for 7.5 years.
And during that time as a detective, did you have any other duties besides detective duties?
I was also on the SWAT team for a period of time.
Once you had your 7.5 years as a detective, what was your next assignment?
I was on the SWAT team in a part-time capacity, so there was a window of about 3 months that I was in a full-time capacity before I became a CSI.
Tell the jury, what do you do as a CSI?
My primary responsibilities are to document crime scenes, and we do that with photography and sketching and notations that we take or observations at.
Was that your assignment in February of 2017?
It was.
You've been a CSI for how long?
16 years.
Tell us about your education, Sergeant Page. Do you have a college degree?
I do.
And what's that in?
Fine art photography. I graduated from the Heron School of Art, which is attached to Indiana University.
As a CSI, do you have specialized training?
I do.
Could you describe that to the jury?
We have approximately a 1-month training where they teach us the basics and documentation of crime scenes, and then we work with each one of the disciplines in the laboratory, for example, DNA or latent print examiners, and they show us how to collect evidence, for their standards so they can later analyze it. And then, since that time, I've had hundreds of hours of additional follow-up training in various disciplines throughout the lab.
And is your training both formal, in terms of specific instruction, and is it also on the out-in-the-field training, as well?
It is.
And how long did you have on-the-job training as a CSI before you had?
There's a 6-month period of mentorship. I had 3 mentors, each one of them had approximately 20 years of experience each, and then I worked scenes with them. And then after that 6-month period, once I had met all the requirements, then I'm released to work death investigations on my own. During that 6-month period, if it's property crimes, once you're released, the CSI can work those, but it's a 6-month period before you can work death investigations.
It may have been somewhere I heard that a crime scene investigator is the laboratory out in the field, the forensic laboratory in the field. That may not be totally accurate, but are you a part of the laboratory system?
I am.
And do you receive training from lab personnel in the various disciplines of the Indiana State Police Laboratory?
I do.
Do you work closely with those analysts in the various disciplines at this laboratory?
I do.
What about forensic pathologists? Do you work with them, as well, in your field?
Yes.
And have you worked with a number of forensic pathologists?
I have.
Who are some that you've worked with and submitted cases or interacted and collaborated with on investigations?
I've worked with Dr. Darren Wolf, Dr. Scott Wagner.
Where does Dr. Wolf practice?
He works primarily out of the Lafayette area, but also Indianapolis.
Dr. Wagner?
He works out of Fort Wayne.
Any others come to mind that you've worked with over your career?
There's been many, and many times, especially in Indianapolis, there's kind of a turnover rate. I mean, I've been working death investigations for 22 years, there's just been a variety of them, and many of them I can't remember their names, but...
In your time with the state police, both as a detective and with the crime scene investigation unit, how many crime scenes have you processed?
I don't keep track of specific numbers as a crime scene investigator. I probably have somewhere between 950 to 1,000 scenes, but that doesn't include scenes I worked as a detective or as a trooper.
How many homicide scenes have you worked as a crime scene investigator?
I would estimate 100.
And you've testified before as a CSI?
I have.
And how many times?
Dozens.
Have you processed crime scenes involving serious injuries or death caused by sharp instruments, knives, other sharp instruments?
I have.
Have you worked crime scene investigations with firearm-related evidence?
I have.
I'm going to direct your attention to February 14th, 2017. On that day, did you begin your work in this particular case?
I did.
Who were you contacted by and how do you respond?
Brian Olehe was the lead CSI in this case. He works out of the Lafayette Post. He contacted me and requested assistance.
Are you on the same level, assigned to a different region than Sergeant Olehe?
Yes. We're both assigned to Area 1, which is 3 different districts. He's out of the Lafayette Post, which Carroll County is assigned to that area, and I'm out of Peru Post and it's adjacent to. I live in the Kokomo area.
Is it unusual for you to work with our state police crime scene investigator?
Could you restate the question?
Is it unusual for you to collaborate and work with another crime scene investigator?
It is not.
What about with other departments other than the Indiana State Police? Is that unusual?
It is not.
In fact, in terms of all the cases that you work, how many times are you assisting or working with a non-Indiana State Police agency?
I would estimate at least 75% of the work I do is for other agencies.
So once you were contacted by Sergeant Olihi, well, first off, do you know approximately what time he contacted you?
I think it was sometime afternoon, shortly after noon.
And do you know what time you arrived?
I think I arrived around 1:30, maybe slightly before that.
And when you arrived, where did you go?
I was asked to park my vehicle up at the old cemetery, the Delphi cemetery area. It was kind of a staging area. So I parked there and then I walked down this kind of a steep grade, this hill where I was told that the other officers were.
Did you later, perhaps the following day, go to the Monon High Bridge?
I did.
The area where the cemetery is located, the land between the cemetery and the Monon High Bridge, and the bridge itself, are those all in Carroll County, Indiana?
They are.
You were beginning to tell us what you did upon arrival. Did you leave the cemetery area and proceed to some other location?
I did. I walked down from the cemetery to where the officers were staged. There was crime scene barrier tape that was set up and the officers that were present. There was numerous officers there. They were outside the barrier tape and they had a crime scene log that was being maintained, and I met with Brian Olihi and Dwayne Datzman. Dwayne Datzman is another crime scene investigator that was requested to assist.
You've worked with Olihi before, I think you said?
I have many times.
Have you worked with Dwayne Datzman?
Many times.
Was he a sergeant at the time as well?
He is.
And you were all trained, experienced CSI investigators?
Correct.
What was the purpose of you meeting there at the edge of the crime scene tape at that point?
Primarily to get the initial information or the facts that were known at that time, and then we came up with a rough plan of how we were going to work for that day. The basic plan was for the three of us CSIs to work the area that was inside the barrier tape that had been established, and I estimate it was approximately the size of a football field roughly, and then our primary focus was going to be around the immediate area of where the girls were located or where I was told they were located. And then, at the same time, we had other officers that were there at the scene. We arranged for them to search outside that immediate area from the area where they were reported to have last been seen, to the barricade tape that we had set up that area. And then, there was also dive team or people assigned to a dive team that were doing searches of Deer Creek itself.
So there was a water rescue team working the creek and actually in the creek?
Yes, I saw them there when I arrived.
Did they have distinctive apparel or uniform suits that they wear when?
They did.
Did you prepare a diagram of that would help with the topography of the local area from the area of the high bridge to the cemetery?
I did.
And did you do one a little bit zoomed in a little closer?
I did.
And what do those two diagrams help to illustrate?
Due to the trees and all the foliage and some of the satellite photographs or the helicopter photographs, it's difficult to get an understanding of the topography of the area, so I merely took a topographical map and then just placed basic landmarks on top of them so they can be compared to other maps.
Did you strike that? Let me ask this again. Did you designate you and Sergeant Datzman and Sergeant Olihi designate an area that you called Ground Zero?
We did.
And where was Ground Zero?
Through our search of the area, initially we do a visual examination just to see what items that are obvious to us at the time, and it seemed like from that and during our continual search, all the primary evidence that we observed was confined within an area of approximately 30 feet in diameter. We did not put crime scene tape around this, but this was the area that we pretty much worked the entire day, and then other officers remained outside.
Did you also prepare a diagram based upon images that were maintained?
I did.
I'm going to show you what we've marked as States Exhibit 18, 19, and 20. Ask if you can identify those for the jury, please.
States Exhibit 18, 19, and 20 are diagrams I prepared.
And are the 18 and 19 the topographical ones that you prepared and then 20 is the Ground Zero drawing based upon the scene photographs?
Correct.
I would move the admission of 18, 19, and 20. States Exhibits 18 through 20 offered.
Can I ask a preliminary question regarding 20, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Page, with respect to number 20, this is the diagram of the bodies. Did you do any dimensional research before you placed deities on this exhibit?
I did.
Okay, and how did you do that?
I did an overlay of the 3D diagram or the 3D scan that was later done, and also seen photographs where I'm up in a tree and I'm looking down 90 degrees. And when I do transparencies and do an overlay, both the scans and the scene photographs almost perfectly matched. And then I traced the items that were of note in Ground Zero. So they're I wouldn't call them to scale 100%.
Did you, with regard to 18, 19, and 20, did you prepare all these after I took your statement back in March?
Yes.
Of 2024?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any objection, Your Honor.
All right. Without objection, 18, 19, and 20 are admitted. States Exhibits 18 through 20 admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would like to publish those.
You may. States Exhibits 18 through 20 published.
I've just been informed that I hold the key here to the next slide, so I'll a minor miracle. Would you orient? With court permission, may I have the witness come down to the screen?
You may.
Could you come down? There is a bit of a high-tech pointer here.
Okay.
Would you, Sergeant Page, would you show the jury on that diagram the location of the cemetery?
The cemetery's in this area here. Indicates.
And where the Monon Bridge?
Monon Bridge is in this area in the center of the frame.
And Deer Creek?
Deer Creek runs from the left side of the right side through the middle of the frame of this image.
And where is which directly what is downstream on Deer Creek?
If I recall correctly, I believe from right to left.
So it's flowing towards the left?
Correct.
It's a little hard for us to see at this point, but there's a yellow rectangle triangle there, the exterior or the outer perimeter. Would you describe what that is?
This is the general location of where the barrier tape was. So for orientation, I parked up in the cemetery area, walked down this grade to this floodplain area, what we call it, and then there was barrier tape in this general location. It's approximately the size of a football field.
And there is, I think we'll see on the next slide a little bit clearer, But describe for the jury the topography from the cemetery to the crime scene tape.
This section here, directly beneath the cemetery, is pretty rough. I don't remember going through that. I could have, it's been 7+ years, but I think most of us walked down the side, more towards the right of this image, and the grade's a little less steep. But you can see by the markings on the map that it's a fairly steep area. Areas closer to on the cemetery side of Deer Creek, between the high bridge and the barrier tape, the topographical map shows how it's much more sheer, and those can be seen in scene photographs as well, just to compare the different grades.
This is the sheer area you're talking about?
Correct.
One of them?
Correct.
And did you later spend on the following 2 days after the 14th, did you spend an amount of time in this area here, across the creek from the crime scene tape area?
I did.
It's a little bit of a zoomed in look at that. There is a line, a yellow dotted line, inside the crime scene perimeter. Would you describe for the jury what that is, please?
That is a rope line I used just to further designate our approach in and out of the crime scene as we worked throughout the day. I put a little arrow to show that this is the general location where the scene log was, and then we walked straight in, and then I tied a rope to a small tree, and there was kind of a natural tree line in this area. And then when we walked this initial distance from where the scene log was to where I tied that rope, we were also systematically examining the ground to see if there would be any potential items of evidence there or any disturbed areas. And then, as we're walking through that area and we don't see anything, we feel like that's a safe place that we can approach. And then the same thing was done after I tied the yellow rope to the tree. We spent a great deal of time just walking that path to make sure there was nothing there, and we are able to get to a point approximately 20-30 feet away from what we later called ground zero to do our examination, and that's what that dotted line designates.
And what other function did this yellow rope serve for you as?
It also provided a landmark in some of the photographs. For example, in this open courtroom, if we were working this room and we have CSIs or other investigators and the one's walking one path, another one walks another path, it'd create too much disturbance, so we basically used it as a landmark. So if I used the railing in front of the judge's bench, we would walk along that line, and then with this tape area for the cords down here, that would be like the rope line, we would follow that in and then to go the scene.
So your exit and entrance into the scene as you were there that day, you followed that path for what reason?
Because we knew that there were no items of potential evidence there, and we were going to continue all throughout the day to do additional searches in these other locations. We were merely trying to find a safe location that we could walk in, do an initial approach on the bodies, and just see what evidence was there.
You arrived into that crime scene tape area sometime before 2 p.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you left that crime scene area that evening at approximately what time?
10:20 p.m.
Go to the next slide. This is Exhibit 20. And what are we looking at here?
This is a top-down, bird's-eye view of the items that we observed within what we called Ground Zero.
And describe for the jury the objects and what they're looking at on the exhibit in front of you.
The item on the far right, this blob, I just labeled it tree. I put a legend at the top because sometimes arrows can be disorienting and cover up the area, so there's a legend at the top that shows these other items, but the ones I have labeled, there's a tree, which is this blob on the far right-hand side. And on the far left-hand side, there's another blob that I've also labeled as a tree. So it'd be like the tree was cut and you're looking top-down on it.
Sergeant Page, you stated that one of the resources you used to create this Ground Zero diagram was a 3D imaging photography. And does that capture an area from a top-down like that and display on its imaging the top of the tree that is depicted in your diagram?
Yes.
Then go ahead, what else do we see?
This outline of this body is Libby, the outline of this body to the left of Libby is Abby, and then these gray, linear, irregular shaped items, these are various branches that were located on top of their bodies. There's a larger one that I would call a limb that's on top of Libby's body. There are some others that are on the ground, twigs and branches near their feet area. And then on the legend, there's a dotted circle that represents an exposed dirt area. So the only disturbed ground, where it was obvious that leaves and other items were missing, was this little indentation in the ground at the bottom of this diagram. And then the pale red areas on the diagram are the primary bloodstains that we located and observed within the scene.
Thank you. Instead of having you return to your seat, I'm just gonna go ahead and hand you a number of exhibits, if you're comfortable with that, and ask that you take your time well. Why don't we let you have a seat, so you can?
Yes.
Do they truly and accurately depict the scene and illustrate your testimony?
They do.
I would move the admission of Exhibits 21 through 63. States Exhibits 21 through 63 offered.
No objection.
All right. Without objection, 21 to 63 inclusive are admitted. States Exhibits 21 through 63 admitted.
Sergeant Page, why don't you go ahead and return to the screen and we'll proceed. This would be Exhibit 21. What are we looking at here, sir? States Exhibits 21 through 63 published.
This photograph was taken from the vantage point of where I was standing after I signed into the crime scene log, and I'm facing Deer Creek. In the foreground at the bottom, center of the scene is the crime scene barrier tape. And then you can see parallel just above it is Deer Creek in the distance. Farther beyond in the frame, you can primarily see it in the upper left-hand portion. This is the other side of the creek, and it's a much higher elevated grade. This is private property on this side. And in the center of the frame of this image.
I think we can expand it slightly maybe. But it's right in this area here?
Indicates.
It is. It's tied to this small tree, and the rest of the rope is just dangling on the ground.
And are the location of the bodies of Abby and Libby, are they there in the frame of the photograph?
They are not. They would be located farther near the left-hand side of the frame.
Exhibit 22, what do we see here?
The right side of the frame, you can see the small tree that I tied the yellow rope to with the rest of the rope, as I previously described, is on the ground. And then, in the middle of the frame, just left of center in the distance, is the body of Libby and Abby. These trees here appear to have a natural line. And then the topography, even though it's more flat in this area, there is some variation to it, so there's almost like a small little ridge, and these trees are all along that area, and this is the path that we took to make our ingress.
Is this area flat?
It's not completely flat, but it's flatter than the other areas. It's very hilly and steep in most of the other locations.
Is there dips and small little areas of the area going up and down?
There are. I would consider this a floodplain area.
And what do we see in Exhibit 23?
The rope line in the previous image is now located on the far left-hand side of the tree, or rather of the image here, and the rope is on the ground. All this is in the previous image. I took it with the rope on the right hand of the image. Now I've kind of stepped off of this natural tree line just to show the Van-Taggy point on the other side towards the bodies of Libby and Abby in the center of the screen. Slightly above it in the background, you can see the farther perimeter areas of the crime scene barrier tape. And then, Deer Creek kind of moves around this bend above in this image around where that barrier tape is, and then it goes kind of curves around off to the right-hand side. You can also see in this area that this plane kind of dips down a little bit, so this area from the left center to the middle kind of dips down a little bit. So they're just variations to observe as you're looking at the image.
Point again to where the body of Libby is.
The right-hand center portion of the frame is the body of Libby, adjacent to this tree.
And Abby would be just to her left? Or to our left?
Yes.
Exhibit 25, I believe this is.
This is a close-up from the same basic vantage point. Using a zoom lens, I just merely zoomed upon that same location to see the girls' bodies from the place that I was standing. Libby is at the base of this tree near the right side. The left side of this frame, left lower center, is Abby, and you can see in the center.
As you're taking photographs, what is your process that you follow in taking crime scene photographs?
Every crime scene I work has the same general process, where I photograph from general to specific, so I always want to show the general location. For example, if it's a house that's in a suburban neighborhood, I want to show not just the house that the crime scene's at, I want to show the neighborhood in general so we can get an idea of what we're looking at. Or if it's a rural house surrounded by farm acreage, that could be significant too, because in that context maybe there were no witnesses because it's in a remote location, for example. And this particular scene, all these initial photographs were to show the general area, its topography, the relationships of the creek and the other landmarks and the bodies of the deceased victims.
Exhibit 26, does that show the large limb that's there over a portion of Libby's body?
It does. And I believe in the foreground is this portion of exposed dirt that I'd mentioned earlier in the diagram. I believe it states Exhibit 20. There's a large limb on top of her. And then this photograph too is the wider shots I consider very general. This is what I consider more of a medium shot, to show the immediate area of the girls' bodies and their location. And this is generally the area that this bowl circle area of trees around this area, is what we later determined to be ground zero.
Does photo 26 illustrate the kind of topography that the girls' bodies are within?
It does.
Just briefly say what you mean by that.
It's kind of like a slight grade from above Abby's body, and these trees are much higher up. So if the horizon line OF this pointer stick is right here in the middle, you can kind of see how this rises up towards the left. The immediate area where Libby is kind of more of a valley type area. And then in the distance, this grassy area that you see in the center of the frame near the top, this is the bank of the creek, see a bit of a rise there, and then there's trees. And then this darker portion, this kind of cross section that follows the upper middle horizon line is another grade for this very sheer surface. And in this area, the far right hand corner, you can see there's a coloration difference between this grass, this dark, I touched the screen.
All right.
From the grass that creates one band of color, then there's a darker color, and then there's a darker brown, then a lighter brown, and then you can see the skyline with the trees and the horizon. This lighter band color, that's where there was an access road and there's a slight increased grade that goes up to private property off in the distance.
This photo, you're moving around in a sort of a circular fashion or to your right as you're taking these photos?
I am.
Again, you move slightly to your right to capture that view?
I am. And just for landmarks, you can see in the distancee in the center of the frame along the horizon line is the crime scene barrier tape, that portion of it.
As you're standing taking this photograph, where's the creek? Is it right behind you?
I believe the creek would be over my right shoulder-ish. Kind of curves around, but it's going to be on the left side or, the right side of the frame in this image generally.
And flows around though past this in a curvature fashion. Is that correct?
Yes. And the way that I'm standing, oriented towards the screen, the right side of the screen, as I'm facing it, this is the general location my body was in relation to the creek. So the creek would have been towards my back and the moving off to the right. Could we return to the previous exhibit? For orientation purposes, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see two yellow lines. The one that's near the top, that's the barrier tape, and then below that is the rope line. You can see where my rope line goes from the left to the right. It's tied around another small tree. I touched the screen again. It's kind of hard not to do that. But anyway, you can see where the rope line then comes to the base of some other trees, and that's basically where we made our approach. So in this particular exhibit, you can see a foot of Libby. And then this is the limb that I'd mentioned before. Not too far from her foot, I believe, is this exposed dirt area. And then you can see the rope in the distance, so this would be the path that we took in from left to right in this frame, but along the rope line. And then beyond the rope line, because it gets kind of confusing with all the yellow lines, that's actually the barrier tape. And just for visual impression on the film, it looks close, but it's actually quite some distance away, and then it wraps around clear past the other part of the frame towards the right.
Okay. You've been describing exhibit 28. Let's go to 29. You just moved.
Not necessarily. You can see the body in the center lower portion of the frame. You can see the body of Abby. The body of Libby appears to be obscured from the large limb and the other tree. I'm moving counterclockwise as these photographs are being taken. And then again, you can see in the left of center horizon area the rope line in this location, and then it dangles down. And then the crime scene barrier tape is in the distance. And in the far distance, this actually has a pretty good picture where you can see more of that gray, because the gray where the cemetery is, it goes off the frame more to the left, but it's very difficult to photograph that because you can't see the skyline, because IT goes kind of straight up. So this area, it starts to taper down in the far distance, so you can kind of get an idea of how steep that was. And then off to the right side of the frame, that's the direction of the creek.
Exhibit 30, and you continued in our counterclockwise route here as you're taking photographs?
Yes.
31, 32.
In States Exhibit 32, you can see the rope line better, which trees it was attached to, and then as it comes into the scene. And in the distance, you can see officers that are outside the crime scene barrier tape. And then in red with the, I believe, yellow helmets or something of that sort, it's hard to make out, but I believe those are members of the dive team.
And in photograph 33, states exhibit 33, we're looking with the creek in the background?
Correct.
And this is just, again, you're moving counterclockwise. Was there anything of note that you noticed in this photograph besides getting a picture of where the creek is in relation to the bodies?
Could you be more specific?
Well, let me just ask, if someone were at the bank of the creek in this area or across the creek, would the bodies of the victims be obscured?
I don't recall me going across the creek while the bodies were there, but I did go across the creek for the next 2 days and I took additional photography, and there are variations there that I don't know how difficult it would be to see, but...
34, you're elevated when you take this photograph?
Yes. I have a ladder that's in my truck, so I extended the ladder, put it in various locations so I can get more of a top-down view. One of the methods I use in my photography is, for every scene, I not only go from the general to the medium to the specific to take technical photographs. I should also note that photography is continual. We take photographs when we arrive. Every activity we do, we photograph. You go from the least intrusive to the most intrusive. So we'll photograph everything as it is in place. So if I was doing the courtroom now, I would have all the items on these desks exactly where they are and show them from the general to the medium to the specific. But I also will document things from the top down so you kind of have a visual map from a bird's eye view of the relationships, because it's all about the relationships of these different items. So they look one particular way from eye level as you're standing, but then I'll get above them 90 degrees and photograph downwards. And whenever I can, I...
Exhibit 35, that's another top-down view?
Correct. And in this image,
No, go ahead.
In this image, it gives a better viewpoint. There is a red-stained area here on the ground that is more visible than in the previous photographs.
36.
This is a top-down view where I'm in a ladder between the crack of this tree, and I photograph down at a 90-degree angle to map out the different items within the scene. This is one of the images I used in conjunction with a 3D scan of the scene to put the locations of all these various items.
Exhibit 37. And now we go to 38. There you continued your counterclockwise movement of the creek in the background. Is that correct?
Correct. And in this particular image, I used a technique called fill flash. Because of all the shadows, it's difficult to see and to take out that contrast. This image shows there is another bloodstain, apparent bloodstain, on the...
This tree that's in the image in the foreground with the victims in the background. Did you examine that tree as well?
I did.
And what did you notice on that tree?
This was the only tree in the area that I observed bloodstain evidence in this portion of the tree. I don't know offhand how high it was, maybe 3 feet. Without looking at measurements, I can't remember. There were stains on this face side of the tree, and then halfway between where this stain is and the base of the tree of the ground on the right-hand side of this, on this image, to the right-hand side of the tree as we're looking at it, was another area of bloodstain evidence. And then beyond this, that larger stain I mentioned earlier in the other state's exhibits is probably obscured from this tree.
Exhibit 39. Does this illustrate the location of the large blood area that you had on the ground zero diagram?
It does.
Would you point that out to the jury, please?
It's in the center lower portion of the frame. You can see it in relationship to their feet. And this photograph also shows the grade of the terrain in this area. And you can see the grass. This is one of the photographs I'd mentioned earlier where I start to get from a lower vantage point. So I want to get everything from a 360 general to more specific from high level than I got from a higher vantage point down. Now this is the portion where I'm getting down near ground.
Exhibit 40. Now we'll go to 41. Is this the large stain that you had in Exhibit 39?
It is.
You were there in person. Describe what you noticed about the quantity of blood that you saw at that location.
Later during the search, this is the following day, I did a systematic search of this entire area, so I would examine all the branches, all the twigs, any items in that immediate area, and look to see if there be any other items of potential evidence on those items. Then later, when I removed all of the leaves and such, this whole area seemed to be saturated still with a large quantity of blood.
41 show or 42 shows the image of Abby?
It does.
I'm sorry, I meant to have a lead into that photograph. You took close-up photographs for what reason?
To show more details, to show trace evidence.
And the next slide is a close-up of Libby's face?
Correct.
And were you wanting to document the pattern of blood and where the blood was located on her body?
It's in just general showing all the details you can. One of the things I do in death investigations is I make sure I focus on the head, the hands, and on the face, and that's what we're looking at. There's some here in the mouth, some in the eye, some in the forehead. This shows the relationship of the head with this organic material.
Would this photograph 44 be the left hand of Abby?
It is. On the lower right-hand portion of this image, the bark that's covered in moss in this area, that's actually that large tree, and then this is her left hand.
45. 46 is her right hand?
Yes. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see the skin of the side of her body, just for orientation purposes. And again, this is a representative photograph of numerous close-up photographs showing details, looking for.
45, excuse me, 48 is the photograph here. Did you have as a team concentrate on one area and one victim first before you went to the next victim?
We did.
What was the purpose of that?
Well, in the particular case of Libby, because she's unclothed, it's just easier to see trace evidence and any injuries and document this area. And because LW Sick had multiple layers of clothes and stuff, we know that a lot of the trace evidence is going to be between those layers, so it was just easier to start the one, and quite frankly, we had to start someplace, so we just started with her.
But you didn't. My point is, you did not process both victims at the areas around them and examining them. You did not do that at the same time?
No.
You did one after the other?
Correct. Can we go back to the previous state's exhibit? Just for confusion.
48.
In this particular image, the tree that's to the left, there's a lot of red hue. It's kind of brown reddish, at least from the vantage point I'm standing, looking at the screen. It looks red, but on closer inspection, this is all just areas of bark, and there were no stains on the surfaces of that tree.
Exhibit 49 shows a blood pattern on her right thigh.
Yes.
And I think that's documented in some other photographs we'll get to later.
Yes.
Did you take photographs of that from various angles?
It's just part of the process. Any item that's going to be captured in this, again, it's just a process of going from the general to specific. Those pictures are all taken prior to moving any objects or moving the bodies.
States Exhibit 50 has numbers on the ground. Would you explain to the jury what they're seeing there?
This is a photograph I took later that night with the flash, or maybe it just appears to be later because it's just an effect of the flash, I can't remember which. But on the left-hand side of the frame, this tree is the one tree that we saw bloodstain evidence on. You can see the stains on this upper portion near the upper left-hand side of the image. And then, midway down, closer to the ground, you can see another bloodstain pattern that we located. I can't remember which, I think it might be where this placard number 1 is. I didn't put these placards there, they were from Brian Olehe, as he was marking areas that he was going to collect representative stain samples, but I believe one designates the area of where another stain of blood was on the ground. I can't recall what 2 marks, it could be some other leaves that may have been stained, I can't recall.
Did Sergeant Olehe, as the CSI for this region, did he collect all the evidence from the crime scene?
The majority of it.
On February 14th?
Yes.
And that was one of the roles he played. You did not collect evidence on.
I did not. My role is to assist Sergeant Olehe as needed.
You see a few other numbers there, 3 and 4, and were they placed there by Sergeant Olehe?
I believe they were.
And were they marking evidence that was collected from those approximate areas?
Yes. And for orientation, you can see that tree in that previous image, there's bloodstain evidence here, and then I don't know, it could be just slightly off the frame is where that placard number 2 was, but this also could have been taken before those placards were put there, I can't recall.
You said that you remained at the scene until approximately 10:30?
We did.
And did you return the following day?
I did.
And what did you return to this specific location on the following day?
I did.
Let's stay for just a moment on the 14th of February. Once it began to be late afternoon, did you notice any change in temperature?
I did.
What did you notice?
It became colder.
And through the night that you were there, did that continue?
Yes.
And when you returned the next day, do you know what time you?
I thought it was around 10, to sometime after 9 before 11:30. I can't recall offhand.
That would be on Wednesday, February the 15th. Is that correct?
I don't know if it was a Wednesday, but I know it was the following day.
The question I wanted to ask you, on the 14th, were you carrying any firearms and any ammunition on that day?
I was.
What were you carrying?
I can't remember if I was carrying a Glock 19, I'm pretty sure I was, and it's a 9mm.
If you were carrying something else, what would that have been?
Pretty much all I carry, if I would, and I seldom carry it. We have a 6 Sauer .45 caliber 227, and I only wear that when I'm in uniform or in some other capacity.
And the Glock, is that a standard issue for Indiana State Police?
No, I believe that was my personal firearm. We're allowed to carry, this is going back a while. I can't remember, but for a long period of time, if you qualify with your personal firearm, you can carry it. And at some point, the department stated we can't carry personal firearms, so now we carry 6 Sauer P365, which are a 9mm, and that's what I primarily carry. I don't know when that was issued, but it was either a 9mm Glock or a 9mm SIG.
Did you have a .40 caliber ammunition with you that day?
I did not.
When you returned the following day, did you do any chemical tests on the crime scene at this location?
I did.
Would you explain to the jury what you did?
Well, to begin with, we just were looking for any additional evidence in daylight because once we lost the daylight hours, we could only do so much. I mean, it is beneficial to look at some items with the flashlight. We had some area lights out there as well, but to do additional thorough searches, we needed to have daylight. So I arrived there with 2 other CSIs, which was Dwayne Datzman and Jerry Mihalik. We were the primary ones that returned to the scene, and the purpose of that was for Jerry Mihalik and Dwayne Datzman to examine that area and then beyond that ground zero area with metal detectors. And while they were doing that, I was looking for any other additional blood contains on any other items or objects in that immediate area without disturbing the ground cover at that time. I didn't see any other additional blood stains, so we looked at the one tree that seemed to have blood stains on its vertical surfaces, and I used a chemical called leucocrystal violet. It is a reagent for blood. It's also a presumptive positive test for blood, and all it does is it's primarily used for latent blood stains. So a latent image or a latent blood stain or a latent print impression is just something you can't see readily with the eyes. So with fingerprints, you have to use some kind of a powder to enhance it to make it visible, and with latent blood stains, you use a chemical that just develops the image that would be there that you can't see. And especially due to the bark surfaces, it's difficult to distinguish the different pigmentation of the tree from the stains. So I applied leucocrystal violet to that area and to other.
Looking at States Exhibit 52, is that a photograph of what it looked like after you applied the chemical?
It is. Leucocrystal violet turns a violet color, and when it reacts to heavier areas or more dense areas of blood stains, it tends to have as part of the chemical reaction, it'll tend to foam a little bit, so it's not so much the pigment, this is what's very visible in this image is you're looking at the foaming aspects. What I was looking for is if there was any other blood stains that were blending into the coloration of the tree, and I didn't see really any other reactions outside of what was obviously visible previously.
Did you know that whether or not any swabs of the blood on that tree had been obtained on the night before?
I do.
And who did that?
I believe Brian Olehe.
So this evidence had already been taken from that area where the blood was observed on the tree?
Correct. He took representative stain samples from numerous locations.
One question I wanted to ask you about the let's go to the next slide, then I will get to that. What do we see here in 53?
It's the portion that's a little lower on the counterclockwise portion of that same tree, and no additional latent stains in that area developed. It was primarily just these heavier areas. When the chemical that was applied to them, they tend to foam up, so that's what these lighter colored areas are, is just the foaming action of those thicker stains.
And the previous night, had you measured these areas from the ground to record/document the relative height from the ground of these different stains on the tree?
Yes. In addition to having the 3D scan, which is more detailed in placement, we also used conventional measuring methods of using regular surveyor's tapes and scales and such to document then before the evidence is collected.
Exhibit 54 is the tree in the just off center to the right in this photograph. Is that the tree that Libby's body was next to?
Yes.
What does 54 illustrate?
This is much later from the previous state's exhibits we just looked at. This is midway through the portion where I started with this tree and worked outward from there, the tree that you had mentioned, and I examined systematically all the sticks, the twigs, the branches, and the leaves to see if there was any other items of evidence or if there could have been something underneath that ground cover. This is one representative photograph of this where, eventually, everything within that what we designated as ground zero and then beyond it several feet, just kept peeling that back. But at some point, with every crime scene, there has to be parameters you have to just come to the point like, how far do we go? Do I do an acre? So I basically just took this probably 5 or 6 feet outside of ground zero, and this is part of that process. And then, in the foreground, you can see this. This is before I completely uncovered it, but this is the area that was that large stain with the leaves, and then, in the distance, you can see in the center top of this image.
Was scene security maintained from the time you arrived on the 14th until once you returned on the 1/5? Was there remaining scene security present?
There were.
Did you return? Here's another photograph, 55, of the same process. You described that. This is from a different angle. Did you return on the following day, the 16th?
I did.
We're going to look at State's Exhibit 56, this photograph of the Monon Bridge. Which end are you positioned when you took this photograph?
I believe I'm in the lower left-hand corner. This side is the public side. Deer Creek is running underneath the bridge. In the left-hand side of the frame, you can kind of see how sheer the bank is and the topography of this area. In the middle section, near the top, you can kind of see where this floodplain is, and you can see it's kind of irregular, because especially the trees that are along the bank kind of create a little slight rise in the ground there, but this is all wooded, but this is the area that I would call a floodplain. It also continues on the far right-hand side of the frame, where you can kind of see how dense the trees were and the topography of the ground.
And just to make sure we're oriented, Sergeant Page, where would the victims be? The bodies have been discovered.
They would be somewhere in the center top of the frame.
Around upstream around that bend. Is that correct?
Correct.
What did you notice about the condition of this bridge when you were there on February 16th?
You can see in this image that there are no handrails or guardrails off the side. It's just exposed old timber. Many pieces of the timber were very rotted, and there were many gaps where some of the railroad timbers were missing altogether.
Did you cross that bridge yourself?
I did.
Do you have a fear of heights?
Not if I trust what I'm standing on, but I walked it.
And how would you describe that process, being on it?
I thought it was a little sketchy, but I walked across the bridge.
What are we looking at here on Exhibit 57?
In the upper left-hand portion of the frame, you can see there's some kind of barrier there. That's on the public side. Then you have the bridge that runs along the left-hand side of the frame. And there's some of these boards that kind of create a platform. I'm standing on one of those platforms, looking towards the Monon Trail itself, the public walking trail. And then the entire remainder of the frame from the center to the right shows how sheer this kind of cliff edge is. We can kind of see how the topography rises from the high bridge up a little higher. And then in the lower left-hand corner, you can clearly see the creek, and you can even see that you can see in the creek a little bit the waters, you can see the creek bottom.
What are we looking at in photograph 59? Excuse me, 58.
Now I'm at the exact opposite direction. So the previous image, I was looking towards the public side, and now I'm looking at the private side. So the upper right-hand corner, you can see another barrier, which is a mirror image of the one on the public side. Somebody put crime scene barrier tape up in this location. Near the upper horizon of this image, you can see this light green, sandy color. This is all a large lawn area from a residence. Near the center of the frame, you can kind of see where this home was, and I don't know what the address is, I don't know who lives there. And then in the lower left-hand corner of the frame, this is a gravel drive. I looked it upon the map, it said North 625 West, so I don't know if it's considered a county road or a private drive or an access road, I don't know what you call it, but it comes in this area and there's a slight elevation, I had mentioned it previously in other exhibits, and then it ties into this private residence. And then the lower left-hand side of this image is this gravel area that kind of extends just in distance from there to that barrier from the high bridge, so the high bridge is off the frame at the bottom. And then to the immediate left, I noticed that the levees seem to have been displaced because there's this exposed dirt area that goes down this grade. This grade is steep, but it's navigable, and then it goes to this access road, and then going again to the left-hand side of the frame. This area just the other side of the access road is pretty steep, but it leads to a large floodplain area that I mentioned previously, and the location of the bodies of Libby and Abby would be somewhere beyond in these trees on the left-hand side of the frame.
Across the creek?
Yes, and this was taken 2 days later.
This next photograph was taken from that access road you described.
Correct.
Coming down the hill?
Correct. That's the upper left-hand portion of this image. I've now walked past the high bridge, gone down this grade, standing on the access road. And when you're taking wide-angle lenses, when you're using wide-angle lenses and even zoom lenses, it is a bit of a compression, so this looks like it's a far distance, but I don't recall it being very far. But this goes back to the bridge. The road is relatively level, but to the immediate right that's off the frame, there's kind of steep grade, and then that leads into the floodplain.
May we approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Sidebar conference conducted.
Just briefly, this is going a little longer than I wanted. I have not too much longer to do.
Okay. We're gonna have to break between direct and cross.
That's what I thought. So do you want to break now?
Well, why don't you finish it, and then we'll take a break.
No, we're gonna finish direct. We're gonna finish direct, but we're gonna have to break between direct and cross.
Okay, and just do lunch probably?
Probably.
Sorry. Do you want to break now?
No, just finish your direct.
Sidebar conference concluded.
Exhibit 60, sir. Where are you located when you took this photograph?
I walked from the high bridge down off the access road, and you could see in the distance this dark line near the center of the frame, kind of diagonal line on the left-hand side of the frame. That's the high bridge. You can see daylight from underneath it and above it through the trees. This is what I consider a type of floodplain area that has all these trees in it. I walked a little bit farther upstream than the location of the scene, the primary scene, ground zero, and I'm standing on this kind of a shallow rock area, so I could be in the middle of the creek without getting too wet. And so this is the part, the majority of the frame is the creek as it goes downstream and then turns around this bend towards the high bridge.
Next photograph is number 61. Is that from the same location now looking across the bridge, or I mean across the creek?
Yes. From this vantage point, the previous state's exhibit, I'm looking at where the high bridge was to my left, and then I've just merely pivoted to my right and I'm showing the other side, the other bank of Deer Creek. And you can see in the middle left, the middle right-hand portion of this image, some of the barrier tape that's up, and that was the farthest area out. You always want to establish, whenever you're working a scene, you always want to be very generous and take whatever area that is apparent, that seems to be involved, and you pick a much larger area because until you've examined it, you don't.
So the barrier tape that you mentioned, the crime scene tape on the right-hand side, would be the upstream edge of the crime scene area?
Correct. Is that outside leg?
Look at State's Exhibit 62.
It's similar to the previous exhibit. You can see the crime scene barrier tape near the middle lower portion near the center, and then the area out to the right of that, this part of the bank. All these areas of the banks were examined for days by numerous people, myself included. We didn't see anything along these areas of the bank that were upstream, and you could see that the sides of the bank are much more sheer. They have a more steeper grade. This area near the left of the frame on the bank, it's kind of a grassy area, and that's one location that has a more shallow grade, but these other areas, especially these trees that are right near the creek bank, it's kind of an elevated area.
And how when you designate the area as a shallow or more gradual bank, I should say, that area was where in relation to where the bodies were found approximately?
The bodies were just from this grassy portion, as I recall it, and of course, again, I have a wide-angle lens and there's some compression and it adds a little disorientation, but in this particular image, if you're thinking more from left to right and kind of in, it would be near the centerish of the frame.
When you were at the crime scene on February 14th, and you were near the...
Yes.
What did you notice?
My recollection is that her clothes were damp, but it's been so long and I didn't make specific notes, I don't know exactly where it was damp, I just remember her clothes seeming damp.
And I think it's our final photograph, 63. That simply is from looking more straight onto the bank from that location from the rocks where you were standing?
Correct. I'm just making quarter turns clockwise, so I went from one end to the bank to the other end of the bank, and now I'm showing the extreme other side where you can see not only the end of the barrier tape, but you also see all this other terrain that's more upstream on the right-hand side of the frame, and then ground zero would be located somewhere beyond these trees in the center left portion of the frame.
You may return to your seat. A group of CSIs gathered again on Sunday, the 19th of February. Is that correct?
They did.
And did you participate in that?
I did.
And how do you recall how many Indiana State Police crime scene investigators participated in that search?
I believe there was 9, including myself.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
As I indicated up here at the bench, we're gonna have to take a break. It's 11:30, so I think we'll just do an early lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long morning for you, and I apologize that we kind of went through the break, but we will go ahead and break. While you're outside the courtroom, please keep your minds open. Please don't form any opinions or conclusions about anything. You may discuss the evidence that you heard so far, but please, only do that if all 16 of you are present in the jury room at the same time, and then, please, don't deliberate. Gentlemen.
All rise.
Jury out at 11:30 a.m.
You may be seated. Is there anything we need to do outside the presence of the jury, Mr. McClelland?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Rossi, anything?
No, Judge.
Let's be back here at 1 o'clock, then. We'll give them a little bit more of a break.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Off record at 11:31 a.m. On record at 1:05 p.m.
Okay. We are back on the record. Where is our witness? Where is Trooper Page?
He's right here, Judge.
He's right here.
Okay. Very good. Are you ready? Who's doing cross? Mr. Rossi. Okay. All right.
Do you want...
Well, at least like standing in front of that way, he won't have to.
All rise.
Jury in at 1:07 p.m.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, gentlemen. Trooper Page, if you'd resume the stand, please. I'm sorry, Sergeant. Mr. Rossi, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Trooper Page, you're aware that those girls were last seen on February 13th in a video on the bridge?
Yes.
And that was in the afternoon hours?
I believe so. I don't have a lot of information.
And they were found on the 14th around noon. Is that your general understanding?
Yes.
And you don't have any opinion about when those two girls died between those two times, do you?
Can you restate the question?
You don't have any opinion?
My primary job was to document the information at the scene and not form an opinion.
Okay, so you don't have an opinion?
No.
And you've done, I'm assuming, a number of investigations in rural areas in Indiana.
I have.
And is it fair to say that in woodlots like this, or, forest tracts like this, that there are scavengers around?
Sometimes, yes.
And some of those, one of those scavengers would be, let's say, a coyote?
Yes.
And there are other scavengers like raccoons and birds like buzzards, things like that, right?
Yes.
And those things can sometimes tell you or provide you with information about a crime scene, can't they?
In what way?
Well, in terms of how quickly they may access a crime scene. If there's a body or something there that they're interested in, they can get to those things fairly quickly, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Do you often use insects as a way to assist in making determinations about time of death?
On occasions.
Okay. Would it be reasonable to expect that a coroner, or I should say a pathologist, would take those things into consideration?
If it's available. We've used entomologists on occasion.
Okay. And so it's the same concept really, right? That, flies get to, bodies and things, and it tells you something about timing, right?
There are many variables involved, that's why I'm reluctant, because it's not a yes or no
Okay.
answer. There's several variables.
And maybe that answers the question. There's a lot of variables out there in that outdoor area that can determine or help determine when someone died, right?
With time of death in general, there's just numerous variables that have to taken into account.
Okay, and in this case, taking into account whatever it was that you consumed while you were out there in terms of information, you can't generate any opinion about it?
No.
And in fact, you really don't have an opinion about anything that's interpretive about that crime scene, right? You're not really allowed to have an opinion. Is that fair?
Correct.
And that's part of the policy and protocol that...
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about crime scene integrity. Have you heard that phrase?
I have.
Okay, and just generally, you're the expert here, but does that basically pertain to the idea that you're trying to maintain a crime scene in its most natural state, so that there's, essentially, no taint?
Correct.
And is it fair to say that that's one of the big challenges that you have in the course of your business, is trying to maintain that integrity from the beginning of the investigation until the end?
It's one of our responsibilities, yes.
And you've talked today about, hey, when I got there, the tape was already strewn across the woodlet, and things of that nature. That's part of that process, right?
Correct.
Are you aware that there were some breaches in the crime scene integrity in this case?
What do you mean?
Well, have you ever heard that any of the information about what went on down at that scene was leaked into the public early on in this case?
I don't have information about that.
Okay, never heard that?
I mean, I know that there's been claims, but I don't know specifics. I don't follow these cases in the news, so...
Fair enough. Are you aware of any information that would suggest that?
Are you talking about at the time?
Yes.
Or are you talking about now?
When the girls were found?
I don't have information.
Okay, all right.
Of that?
You've never talked to any other officers in the investigation about any of that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about.
To be clear, just for follow-up, you're talking about something that happened 7 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
2017.
Okay.
Are you familiar with any circumstances in 2017 that involved, let's just for example say, photographs of those crime scene? That crime scene being leaked into the public?
No, I don't have any information about that.
Or any information about that crime scene being leaked into the public?
No, primarily I worked this case and then I worked on to move my other.
Okay, so the answer's no?
No, right.
Let's talk about DNA. Obviously, that's kind of a big ticket item in your business. Is DNA evidence one of those things that you take extra precautions to try and collect when you're at these scenes?
It's one of the things that we collect, yes.
Okay, and in this particular case, I'm assuming that you did some swabs and other things of that nature, trying to select as much as you could in that regard, right?
I didn't collect any swabs.
Okay, who would have done that?
Brian Olihe, the lead investigator.
Okay, you were primarily taking pictures, right?
Correct.
We've kind of established that before. That was your main job?
Yes.
All right, let me just get to the point. Are you aware of any DNA evidence that was collected from this particular scene that in any way connects Mr. Allen to this crime?
I have very limited knowledge about any of the subsequent laboratory tests. I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so basically, in your mind, as far as what you know, you're not aware of any?
No.
Okay, you used an alternative light source, I believe, at that crime scene. Is that right?
I did.
And that light source, it's just another investigative tool that you use to try to find trace evidence?
Correct.
Okay, and I think we talked about this before, but just to kind of move things along, trace evidence would be things like semen or saliva or sweat, those kinds of things?
Yes.
Not blood, right? Blood would not be one of those.
Well, blood under ALS absorbs light, so it appears darker, so in some ways it could be useful. But primarily, we use it for bodily fluids or fibers or anything else that would fluoresce.
Okay, and in the course of using that alternative light source, were you able to recover any trace evidence that you believe is material to this case?
I didn't recover any evidence, but I know some evidence was recovered.
Okay, but I'm talking about this trace evidence, semen, saliva, anything.
Oh, I don't recall any stains. We looked at the scene twice, once when the bodies were in place and then later looking at the area. I don't recall seeing any stains that fluoresced or anything of that nature.
Okay, and we're there. Do you have any knowledge of whether or not there was any type of like a rape test kit done or anything like that on the victims in this case?
I'm assuming they would have been done at the autopsies.
But not something you would have been involved with?
No.
Okay, I mean, sometimes you guys will go down and attend these autopsies, right?
Yes, I did not attend an autopsy in this case.
Okay, that would have been Mr. Olihe maybe.
Yes.
That might have been involved in that process.
Correct.
Okay, earlier, we got a chance to look at some of the photos and, obviously, would you acknowledge that when you got to that crime scene that there was some unique circumstances to that crime scene, especially as it relates to the sticks that were around the bodies?
Specifically, what do you mean by unusual?
Well, ever been to a crime scene like that, where you saw sticks arranged on bodies like that?
I've been to, as we've spoken before, I've been to scenes where there's branches and sticks and objects on bodies, yes.
Did you think that there was any particular significance to the way those sticks were arranged or the fact that they were even there, for that matter?
It's something that we note and we document.
Okay, you agree with me that those sticks were not placed there just coincidentally, right? It wasn't something Mother Nature did?
Are you asking my opinion on this based upon?
I'm asking if you would agree with that conclusion.
It appeared that when you just look at the sequence of events that the bodies would be there and then those sticks, the branches were on top of them.
But there was some human act that caused that, right?
That would be reasonable.
Okay, and with regard to those sticks, did you do anything in particular to try to recover any trace evidence from the sticks themselves?
I didn't recover any items of evidence.
Okay, you didn't collect any items of evidence?
I did not. Yeah, I did not collect any items of evidence.
Did you do anything in terms of examining those sticks to try and recover any trace evidence from the sticks?
I recall examining the sticks, the limbs, and the EMS in that area, but I did not recover any items of evidence.
Okay, and when you say you recall examining them, are you talking about with the ALS source?
That, and with white light and just visually and during daylight hours.
Okay, would you have like actually pick those sticks up and move them over or turn them over when you were doing what you said you were doing with the white light and the ALS?
Yes.
Okay, and even the larger branch, then?
Yes.
Okay, and you didn't find anything of any significance?
No.
Let's talk about the clothing. Abby was the only victim that was clothed, right?
Correct.
And there was some testimony earlier about the condition of her clothing in terms of whether or not it was damp. You remember talking about that?
I do.
And basically, your recollection is that you recall her seeming kind of damp, but you don't have a great recollection about what happened 7 years ago at this point, right?
Correct.
And apparently, looking back at the photos was not helpful in you recovering any of what, you remember from back in 2017, correct?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay, and would you agree with me that there was nowhere on those clothes where there appears to be like an obvious waterline or anything like that, where we can discern that, hey, somebody was in the water up to their thighs?
Well, I've looked at primarily my photographs, but it could be in some of the photographs if I examine them for that.
But after sitting here today, you don't have any recollection?
I don't have any direct recollection. It seems like something I've seen.
Did you generate any kind of or secure any kind of a weather report from February 13th of 2017 or February 14th?
Personally, I have not.
Is that something you've done as a crime scene tech in the past, gone back?
Mostly to document for my notes, and I have done it in this case just out of curiosity. I was trying to, but it wasn't for this report or anything official.
Okay, do you know anything about what the temperatures were on those 2 days?
What I looked up is that it was approximately 57 degrees at the high and 34 degrees at the low, but I just looked that upon my phone to refresh my memory of the temperatures.
Okay, do you remember the high being higher on the 14th than it was on the 13th?
I can't remember.
Okay, when did you do that?
Do what?
When did you look up the weather that you were just telling me about?
Just a couple days ago.
Okay, just recently?
Yeah.
Were you a part of any circumstance where somebody went out into that creek, Deer Creek, and took any measurements in terms of the depth of that creek?
No.
Why did you not do that?
I had my responsibilities that I was doing, and the dive team and everybody else had their jobs to do. That wasn't one of my assignments.
Okay, are you aware of any information that exists in that regard that you've seen?
That I've seen, no.
Okay, there were some shoe impressions that were photographed at various places around that scene. Is that right?
Correct.
And if I recall, maybe even some impressions from the south side of the creek?
That's yes.
Okay, and you were one of the people that photographed those impressions, right?
Yes. I took supplementary photographs of them, yes.
Okay, and if I recall, a couple of those impressions were along the north side of the creek along the bank area. Is that right?
Yes. On the cemetery side?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and which would be the same side the girls were on, right?
Correct.
Okay, and were you able to do anything with those impressions that assisted you in making any kind of positive identifications about what kind of shoe was worn or how big a foot size was or anything like that?
My understanding is I was providing supplementary photography, and what happened after I documented them, I don't know what happened to those.
So you don't know if there were any results generated from that?
I do not.
Is that something that you would do as a crime scene tech from time to time? Take shoe prints to try to develop those and determine whether or not there's any meaning to those?
It depends upon the cases and the circumstances. Again, I've worked hundreds of cases. If I'm the lead and I'm doing something, if it's relevant with the particular circumstances, yes, and sometimes no.
Okay, you think would have been relevant in a case like this to do something like that?
I don't know because I was primarily assisting with this case. I provided the documentation, and then I submitted the information that I collected.
Okay, is it your understanding that before you got there I think you said around 2 o'clock on the 14th, is that right? Let me make sure my time frames are right.
I checked the crime scene log before my testimony. I logged into the crime scene log at 1:51 p.m., so it would have to be, I probably arrived closer to 1:20, 1:30 at some point.
Okay.
Because the log only indicates the time where we finally go in to make our first approach, so
you might have been at the cemetery 10 or 15 minutes earlier.
Correct.
All right, but that was on the 14th, right?
Yes.
And was it your understanding that there had been a number of people?
I was told that there were searchers and people in the area, yes.
And were you also of the belief that there were people possibly in that area, even on the 13th?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, there was a particular photograph that contained some blood on a tree, and I'm just kind of sifting through. It was photograph number 52. I don't know if we can pull it up. We have the map up here. Do you remember taking this particular photograph of the blood on the tree?
I do.
Okay, and do you agree that we've kind of commonly referred to this as the F tree?
That term has been used.
Okay, and the reason is because that this image on here, the pattern on here, kind of resembles an F, right?
I think that's why people refer to it like that. I refer to it as a blood stain.
All right, well, and that's the business you're in, right?
Correct.
Being very objective about these things, right?
Yes, I try to, yes.
That stain on that tree has drawn some particular attention though from your crime scene team, right?
I've been told, yes.
Okay, and one of the reasons why it's gotten some particular attention is?
Correct.
The fact that it seems to be something that may have been intentional, right?
I've heard that, yes.
In other words, not just some random blood spatter, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, and at some point, my understanding is that you actually made a recommendation that the state maybe retain a blood spatter expert to take a look at that and try to come up with an explanation for how that got there?
Yes, that's true.
Objection to the well. I'll withdraw the objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. And that occurred just more recently, right? This year?
Yes, this year.
Approximately. When did you make that recommendation?
I can't recall. It was sometime spring or earlier in the year before. It was well before the deposition, I believe.
Okay.
That I had with you.
And basically, you suggested that you get an individual by the name of Pat Cicero up in LaPorte involved, right?
That is correct.
And Mr. Cicero followed up and spent a bunch of time working on taking.
That is my understanding, yes.
Did you have any other involvement in that process?
No, other than recommending him.
Let me back up. I digress for just a second. We were talking about DNA earlier. Do you recall that?
Yes.
How hard is it for your laboratory to go get DNA, to take a DNA sample and have that analyzed at a laboratory? Is that a pretty easy thing to do?
What do you mean?
Well, if you were able to collect some saliva off of a body or a piece of clothing, how hard is it for you, or how much time does it take for you to get that to a laboratory and have that tested?
How much time?
Yeah.
It takes to transport it?
Yeah. Is it something you can get done in a day or a week, or does it take 5 years?
Normally, for me, if I had evidence and one of the detectives requested that something be sent in, I would make arrangements with the lab and then we would transport it. I mean, it varies on how long it would take.
Okay. For example, the hair that was on Abby's hand. You know what I'm talking about?
I've heard of that.
Yeah. For you to collect that piece of evidence and to process that from crime scene to a laboratory takes what? A couple days?
It's if there's a request. I mean, that's all I can say. If you're the lead investigator and you ask me to test something, I would send it off to the lab and I'd make arrangements for that, but it's based upon a request. Most of the evidence that we collect in most of our cases never gets examined or analyzed. We keep it for storage pending any future analysis.
But in a case like there, where we have this hair, a couple days to get it to a lab?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there any reason why it would take longer?
You're asking me questions that are outside of my knowledge base because, in this particular case, I don't have the involvement that it would take to know all these things that you're asking me.
Okay. Have you ever submitted a piece of evidence to a laboratory in the course of your employment with the state police?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. How long did that take?
Sometimes it took a couple of weeks or whatever. I mean, sometimes we might have something that would be a rush. I rarely have cases that would be a rush.
The lab would prioritize things for you from time to time if you asked them to?
Yes, they can, yes.
So you do know that much?
Yes.
All right. And so let's just say, for example, with this piece of hair, what would your expectation be about how long it would take for them to turn that result over at the lab and give you some explanation?
I don't know. Once I give it to the lab, I mean, what they do with it, I don't know. I don't know all their processes intimately. I mean, and I don't work out a regional lab. I work out of our post doesn't really have a laboratory. We call it a lab, but I'm not as familiar with all their latest technology and techniques. I collect items, I submit items, I'll transport them, but as far as the turnaround time and all that goes, I don't work out of a regional lab and I don't really run in those circles.
Okay. Well, you used to run in those circles, right? You were a detective at one point.
I was a detective, but my whole career has been at the Peru post.
Okay.
I mean, I don't spend time in the laboratory, so you'd have to ask a lab analyst how long it takes for them to turn around and write reports and have it peer reviewed. I mean, that's something I would defer to an analyst.
A couple weeks sound unreasonable? Maybe a month?
Could be. I mean, sometimes when you have autopsies to get toxicology, it takes a month or two. I mean, I frequently will have detectives asking why it.
Okay.
So.
But you're aware that you can prioritize these things if you want to get them done?
On occasions, yes.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Let me hand you what I've marked. I haven't marked. Ms. Williams over here has marked exhibits E through L. If you just take a quick look at those, and let me know when you're done looking at those.
I'm finished.
Finished? And you recognize those photographs?
I do.
And are those photographs from this crime scene?
They are.
And are those photographs that you took, or at least you, or one of your fellow crime scene techs took?
Yes. One or two of them might be mine, but the rest of them are another individual.
Okay. And you agree that those photographs fairly and accurately depict the conditions that existed at the time they were taken?
I believe so, yes.
Is this, most likely, on February 14th of 2017?
Yes, because the presence of the girls' bodies, that would be on the 14th, yes.
Move to admit E through L, defendant's exhibits E through L offered.
Did you show them to him?
Yeah, he's seen them.
Do you have a copy for us?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're waiting on me.
We're waiting on you, Jim.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I have no objection.
All right. Without objection, E through L inclusive are admitted. Defendant's exhibits E through L admitted.
What were those letters again, Judge? I'm sorry.
E through.
E through L.
Thank you. My apologies.
Move to publish. Defendant's exhibits E through L published.
You may proceed, Mr. Razi.
Thank you, Judge. Trooper Page, let me direct your attention to Exhibit E, which is the first.
Yes.
Just fine without coming up here?
Yes.
This is a photograph that you're familiar with, right?
Yes.
And just tell the jury, what's the significance of this particular photograph? Why was it taken? What are you focused on there?
I believe this photograph was taken during an ALS examination where Brian Olihe and I had our alternative light sources and we were wearing orange goggles, and those filter out certain wavelengths of light, but I believe Dwayne Datzman did not have those goggles and he thought he saw something shiny on the ground when the blue light for him, the light would have looked blue past over that area. So we looked at that area, and the shiny object was a cartridge.
All right. So just in particular here, if I could direct your attention here to the center of the screen, there's a little bare spot of dirt. Isn't that right?
I believe so.
In middle of that there's a cartridge. Is that what you're talking about?
It's difficult for me to see, but I think so, yes.
And so with regard to that cartridge, did you take some more photos of it?
I didn't take any photos.
You did not?
I did not.
Okay. Who took the photos of the cartridge?
I don't recall.
You don't know?
No. I was holding my ALS and I did not have a camera on me.
Okay. So in the course of your investigation as a photographer, the primary photographer in this case, you didn't take any photos of that bullet on the ground?
I disagree that I was the primary photographer. I was a supplementary
Okay, well,
photographer, but at the time I was using my ALS and I didn't have my camera, so
okay. How many pictures you think you took out there?
hundreds.
You just didn't take any of this bullet?
There's a lot of activities that at certain times I didn't photograph.
Okay, just directing your attention to Exhibit F. Just another shot, right? Just a little bit more close than the first one.
Correct.
Okay, again, you didn't take this photo, right?
I did not.
Max G. G, just another shot of the bullet, right?
Correct.
And let's just rifle through these real quick. H, please.
Yes.
Same for inaudible, right?
Yes.
And then I, this is a photograph that appears to be taken maybe when it was a little darker. Would you agree there's a reflection there, or maybe a flashlight on the left there?
Yes. When we used our ALS, the sunset, the sun had gone down and it was dark, so we could use the ALS, so we were using flashlights.
Okay, and then J, just kind of a different angle, same situation. The cartridge is in the middle there, right?
I believe so, yes.
And then I, this is kind of a larger, panoramic view of the scene. Would you generally, just to help the jury, would you generally agree that the area that we're talking about is over kind of in this area, just off of Libby's right ankle basically, on the other side of this twig, or stick?
Correct.
Okay, and so, is this image? Is this more of what the circumstances looked like in their natural state, before the bullet was exposed? The cartridge was exposed, I should say?
I believe so, yes.
So in other words, when that cartridge was first seen by, you said it was Mr. Datzman?
Correct.
It was in its natural state. In other words, as far as you know, the ground around it had not been disturbed?
As far as I know.
Okay, but the pictures that we saw previous to this, where there's a bare spot and you could see the dirt around the cartridge, that's after the cartridge. The area around the cartridge was cleared, right?
I believe so, yes.
Did you do that? Did you clear it away, or did?
I did not.
Okay, did you see anybody do that?
I can't recall. Could have been Dwayne Datzman, it could have been Brian Olehe. I mean, if Dwayne Datzman saw something shiny, he might have been the one that looked at it. You would have to ask him.
You don't remember who did it?
I just remembered I was looking in certain areas and, during our search, Dwayne said he saw something shiny on the ground.
Earlier, you noted in one of the photographs, one of them in Mr. Luttrell's exhibits, there was a bare spot. Actually, it was in your diagram, right? There was a bare spot that you took note of.
Correct.
And it was a little larger than this particular spot where this cartridge was recovered, right?
Yes. I believe it was a few feet farther down. Could be off, I can't tell if it's in the frame or out of the frame on the top edge.
Maybe up here?
Could be.
And so, but in this particular case, as far as where this cartridge was, there was no bare spot there?
No.
It was created?
This is what it looked like, yes.
Okay.
It would have been likely at least recovered to find out what is shining on the ground.
Very good. The next image, please. And so this is a close-up, basically, of that particular area, right?
Yes.
And just to help here, and direct me if I'm wrong, but where, generally, it'll be kind of in this area right here, where the other photograph would have demonstrated that that cartridge case was before the ground was disturbed around it.
Yes, it's in that general area. I'm using her right leg and ankle as a landmark in that branch. But at the time that was located, I don't know if they might have moved the branch slightly when they're looking to find out what is shiny on the ground.
Okay. Did you get a chance to visually inspect that cartridge yourself?
I can't remember. I didn't collect it, I didn't touch it. I don't have a memory of that.
Okay. Would you agree with me, just looking at the photos, for those people that don't know much about cartridges and bullets, that kind of the business end, if you will, the end that has the projectile on it's facing down into the ground, basically?
I would have to see a close-up of the photograph again.
Okay. If you want to step up here and take a look. So this is one of the earlier images where we had a close-up.
It's difficult for me to tell how much it's nose down, how much that's the angle, or if it's just the head stamp is on its ridge. You can see it's a cartridge case.
Okay. This is, but just to help the jury, this is the end that has the primer or the firing pin, right?
Correct.
The bullet would be on the other end, then?
Correct. That's the primer, and then the writing on the outside is on the head stamp.
And so it's, if you were just generally talking about bullets, it's kind of facing down or, at least, at an angle I assume, right?
That's fair.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
For the record, I believe that was Exhibit F. Do you agree?
Might be G, actually. It's after G. I can't tell. These aren't numbered. Think it's number 4?
Yeah, it may be G.
G.
What's that?
G.
G. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jim.
It was G?
G, yeah. Have you seen any photos of that cartridge case as it was being lifted from the ground? Have you seen those with your 2 eyes?
Being lifted? No.
Have you seen any photos of that cartridge case in any other circumstance other than basically right there in the ground as the leaves are moving around it?
No.
Like, for example, on a table somewhere or in a, in a lab or in your evidence locker, anything like that?
Those were not my responsibilities. I was present when that was located, and what happens afterwards, I have no knowledge.
Okay, well, did you review the photographs at least that you took before you came in here today to testify?
I did, and I have seen these photographs in the past.
Okay, yeah, they're part of the larger investigation, right? These photos.
Correct.
All kind of go into
to determine who took what basically had some familiarity with it.
So in reviewing all of those photos, have you ever seen a photo of that cartridge right there, the one in the ground, in any other position other than that?
I've really only reviewed the ground zero basic, the first scene photos.
Okay, well, are there any in those?
I have not.
There are hundreds and hundreds of them, right?
I don't recall.
How many photos you think there are in total, yourself and Olehe and Mr. Datzman took?
Are you talking about during the first few days?
Yeah.
Or in total?
Give us some idea during the first couple days.
I've never counted them. I'd say there's hundreds.
Okay, all right. If you were in charge of this particular scene, if you were Mr. Olehe, Well, let me ask if this way. Have you ever been in charge of evidence processing at a crime scene?
Yes.
Where you were calling the shots?
Yes.
Okay, that's what Mr. Olihi was doing in this case, right?
Yes. Well, it was a group effort, but he's the lead, so he's collecting the evidence.
You gotta have one chief and you have some Indians, right?
I guess.
Okay, in the context of being in his position, would you have recommended that that cartridge be lifted and photographs taken off it as it's being moved out of the ground and in different stages?
No.
Okay, would you have recommended that some video be taken of that cartridge as it's being removed?
No.
Would you have grabbed that cartridge with your hand with gloves on or some tool?
After photographing it, it's totally our discretion how we photograph it and how many pictures we take of it. It's one of many other items that were collected. I would photograph it and then you'd pick it up with often a gloved hand and put it in a pillbox and then submit it as evidence.
Would you have recommended that that cartridge be pulled from the ground and placed in the palm of your gloved hand and then photographed?
No.
In the palm of your gloved hand?
I would not.
Cartridges like that can have marks on them, can they not?
Yes.
Unique marks, right?
Yes.
Marks that can become critical in cases like this, right?
Yes. It's
in terms of making determinations about where that round came from or what gun it was cycled through.
Yes.
Okay, and so, in that respect, it would make sense to take a photo of that cartridge in its state as it was lifted from the ground, cause it would be helpful.
We collect the evidence. We never photograph things in our hands. We try to have, in these pictures, you'll see there's some shoes and it happens, we try not to have our feet, our hands. I've never taken evidence and at least I try not to have any evidence in my hand that I'm photographing. I think that's unprofessional. We would photograph them in the scene. Sometimes, if time allows, we'll take more detailed photographs, but any of these details that you're talking about would be done in a laboratory with a microscope.
That assumes it's submitted to a laboratory, right?
Yes. If
you're not making those decisions?
I am not.
So you can't just assume that it's going to be submitted to the laboratory, right?
If you were to take the photographs that you were talking about, that would happen. To get that detail, we don't have the lenses. I can show some of it, but not for a comparison. I don't have that technology. You would have to have a microscope to do that.
Is it unreasonable for me to expect that that particular cartridge case would have been pulled from the ground and set on a table and a photograph would have been taken of the whole round, the cartridge?
Yes.
Is that unreasonable?
Yes. It's not necessary. There's no requirements. If somebody chooses to photograph it on a table, they could, but I guess I don't.
Well,
taking it on a table.
What if the side of that cartridge was damaged? What if it had a paint mark on it or a dent in it? Might that be significant in a case like this?
Could be.
Well, wouldn't it be good to document those things by a photograph?
I believe that the item was documented.
In that state, right?
Yes.
How hard would it be for an evidence technician to take a cartridge like that, pull it out of the ground, set it on a table, and take a picture of it? How hard is that?
Wouldn't be difficult, but there's no requirement that we do so. It's very seldom do I take. A lot of times when I collect evidence at a scene like a police action shooting, I photograph it. There's a lot of other work to do. You package it and you submit it. If there happens to be some time, occasional LY, I will take pictures like that, but there's no requirement to do such.
Am I mistaken in thinking that that particular cartridge in that location under these circumstances could be pretty critical in this case in terms of the crime scene?
How this affects the case is not my interest. My job and our jobs at the scene is to collect items of evidence. At the time, we don't know if something's significant or insignificant. Anything that we see that could have potential to be. There's a concept called the chain of custody, right? Correct. And that's a very material or substantive aspect of crime scene processing, isn't it? Yes. And basically, just to kind of get to the heart of the matter, that is the idea that you take an item, for example this cartridge, from its natural state, and you document every phase of that item's journey to an evidence locker, right? Correct. And even from the evidence locker to a laboratory, where it may or may not be tested, correct? Yes. And in this case, one of the ways to do that would have been document this cartridge case in its natural state, which was done, correct? Yes. And then, as it was retrieved and placed into, what did you say? A pillbox? Pillbox. That'd be one way to do it, right? That's not a... Yes or no? Yes, it would be a way to do, yes. Yes. And then, at some point, that pillbox could be taken. Are you just saying I would be able to? Yeah, you could do that. Yes, if you wanted to, you could, yes. And that could be helpful in a case like this to see what it looked like in its natural state? Perhaps. You're not aware of any photographs that exist in that regard, are you? What I've testified is my awareness. You're not aware of any photographs that you haven't seen them with your own two eyes?
This has been asked and answered 3 times. I object.
Sustained.
Thank you. Max, would you throw that map up? Let's talk about this particular crime scene. You talked a lot earlier about the scope and the geographical aspects of the crime scene, right? Yes. I'm going to have him pull this map up real quick, and we do have a few questions. This is States Exhibit 5. Am I right about that? Can you blow that up, please? That's 7, States Exhibit 7. Thank you. You want to come up here and take a look at this? Yes. I don't think you've seen this particular map since it's been marked up. Yeah, I have not. So just to kind of orient you, I think you're just as orientated as you probably need to be. Down here at the bottom is, up here at the top is 300 North. You see that mark? Yes. And then, the bridge would be right here. Indicates, this would be the kind of north end of the bridge. Yes. And then, the south end of the bridge, right? Yes. And earlier, when we were using this, forgive me, but the area where the bodies were found was generally, I think, believed by the witness to be here. Indicates, would you agree with me, it's probably some down. We're down in here, probably more to the right of this big circle, bottom right? Yes, because where the cemetery is, I think it's off just a little bit. It's the same general area. Okay, alright. A couple questions I have. With regard to this, the Deer Creek shoreline, if you will, or the line of Deer Creek here on the north side. So that would be side the girls were found, right?
Yes.
Did you take any measurements in terms of the elevation changes from the bottom of that river up to the top of that incline?
No.
Okay, you. The reason why I'm asking is, cause you prepared that nice.
Yes.
But and that was one of the exhibits that was introduced earlier. I think it was the first and second exhibit that Mr. Luttrell introduced this morning.
Yes.
So there's no dimensions on there. There's no reference to elevation changes like 10 feet, 20 feet. Would you agree with that?
I believe it has a distance scale. It's like a GIS map that was used.
But in terms of the different elevations in different areas, it doesn't really demonstrate that, correct?
That map?
Yeah.
I thought that was the purpose of the map.
Well, I'm talking about in terms of the measurements, raw measurements, like how much elevation is, for example, the area behind the cemetery relative to where the creek runs.
I'd have to look at it again to see if there's elevation. I thought this was a spatial.
Okay, yeah, I think that's correct. You're not familiar with any specific numbers on the map, right? Let me hand you what's been marked as 19.
Yes, I'd need to look at the other one, because this is the kind of the close-up.
Okay, so 18. Is that?
Yes, it looks like.
I can't read that, I'm sorry.
I can't read that unless you had magnifying glasses, but I don't remember looking at this. The primary purpose of this map was just to have a kind of a black and white map that didn't have all the trees that are kind of distracting, just to show general areas.
Okay.
But as far as elevations, I don't read topographical maps.
Okay, and so it's not really helpful in telling us whether or not there's a 10-foot incline or a 10-foot depression or anything like that, right?
To my knowledge, no. I don't have any knowledge of that.
So back to my question before. Do you have any idea of what the elevation gain, or if there would be elevation gain from the bottom of the creek, near where the girls were found up to the bank?
I did not take measurements.
Okay, and would you agree with me that it varies in different locations along that creek line?
It does.
South of where the girls were found?
It does.
And you, ultimately, were asked to go out and do kind of a larger scale search, or at least you did do that, right?
That's correct, yes.
And I think you told us earlier, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but...
May I approach?
Yes, you may. I'm sorry. Judge, may he approach?
Yes, he may.
The areas. Is there a way you can zoom this up, or?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, I can see it.
That's up to Max. We don't have the same capabilities they have.
It's fine.
No, you were saying you searched on the days.
My areas were concentrated around this immediate area, this kind of floodplain area, and this, what I consider this kind of a floodplain area. I went to the high bridge, took those pictures in those states exhibits all the way down and then back. I don't have any memory of going over here.
Indicates, I think it was just to document this property was there.
I need to stop you for a second, just so we have a clean record.
Yes.
You started by saying you searched the area fairly near where the bodies were located on the north side of the creek, right?
Correct.
And then you said you searched on what would be, you'd call the north side of the high bridge, right here at the trail entrance off the bridge?
Yes. And I have a memer why of, I guess other individuals were searching the greater area. I have a memory of walking or trying to walk once this area. Most everything is going to be the area my hand is on, over this area, just kind of circled.
South of the cemetery?
Yes. And this then part.
Okay.
Confined to these areas and not much into there. Indicates, as far as all this, I did not look there.
All this being kind of south of the high bridge into the private property, right?
Correct. And I didn't look at anything that's to the upper left.
Let me ask you a question. So on the south side of the high bridge, and I'm kind of directing your attention to where the lane goes underneath the high bridge, the private drive, the bridge extends beyond that lane. Is that accurate?
Yes. I said the lane goes underneath the bridge.
Yeah. So you've got another, I don't know how much, but there's several more foot of the bridge before the bridge actually ends. It goes south, extends south, correct?
Correct.
Southeast technically, I think, if we're really getting technical here, but you generally agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that at the end of the bridge, I think in maybe one of the photos there's actually a barrier, or there's some kind of gate that's erected there?
Yes. It was in one of the photographs. I don't know, this could be that barrier there. I'm not sure.
On the photograph, you're pointing just slightly south of where the lane goes?
Yes, there's lane, there's line.
And do you agree with me that the rail line, it's an old rail line, right?
Yes.
The rail line actually continues to extend south onto the private property?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And there's really, if you were to continue to follow that, as far as at least you went, there are really no elevation changes. You continue to maintain a basically level position. Is that right?
In the immediate area of this path.
After you get past the barriers onto the private property?
I think it is basically stable. I'd have to look at my photographs and refresh my memory on that.
Maybe some slight changes, but it's a rail line, right?
It wasn't a focus of mine, but you can see from this map, it appears you can see where the old rail line was.
Okay. In other words, there's no large hills or anything that you go down once you get off the bridge and off the trail, right?
If you're on the trail, it seems to be generally flat.
Okay. All right. Can you zoom out some for me, please? All right. I want to direct your attention to. Thank you for that. I want to direct your attention to the cemetery up here. I think you might have. Is that where you said you parked?
Yes.
My assumption is, tell me if I'm wrong, that there were a number of law enforcement officials there, parked in that area when you got there on the 14th?
That's my memory, yes.
Okay. And when you got down into the wooded area, a fair amount of people, law enforcement officials down there already waiting and working before you got there?
Yes.
Okay. Are we talking? Help me out here. I haven't seen the photos. Are we talking 10, 20, 30? Give me some idea.
I can't remember. I would say 10.
Okay. And then there were?
Could be more. I don't know.
All right. Well, I don't know either. I'm just trying to get some idea. Was the dive team already in the creek at that point?
Yes, they were.
Well, How many people are we talking about there?
I don't know. I had some awareness of them. I saw them and,
Okay, so you just know they were there?
yes,
And there was more than one of them?
yes,
There was a team. I think maybe that's the word that was used, is that?
yes.
Okay, all rig HT. Are you generally familiar with this 300 North, this roadway that comes into the cemetery? Is that one of the routes you traveled to get into the crime scene?
I'm sure I did to get to the cemetery, but I'm not familiar with this area. I have worked scenes in Carroll County and Delphi, but it's so sporadic. I'm not a local to this area.
Okay, let me direct your attention here to this circle in the middle of this exhibit. Do you see here where there's like a little connector trail that comes from 300 North down to the Monon High Trail?
Yes,
Are you familiar? We refer to that as kind of the Mears connector. Does that sound generally familiar to you or not?
No.
Okay, but you can see it here on the map, right?
yes.
And do you see, across this creek, there's basically a farmhouse in A.
Looks like a farm.
Were you ever asked to go out and do any inspection of anything north of 300 at any point in time in this investigation?
No.
Not next to this farmhouse in the cornfield?
No.
Not behind it?
No.
Not in that particular area on that property?
No.
In the backyard or anything like that?
No.
Okay, what about up here on the top left? There's a circle here that's just to the right of this waterhole across the highway. You see that circle?
Yes,
Does that look like it's just right along the Hoosier heartland there?
yes.
And were you ever asked to go out and do any kind of search or inspection of the area just to the east or southeast of that?
No.
Okay, I'm going to direct your attention back to 300 North to the Mears connector. Do you see that again?
Yes,
Do you see this area, this strip here between the Monon High Trail and?
yes.
Were you ever asked to go out and do any kind of search in that particular area for anything?
No.
This was in February of 2017, right?
Correct.
And we've seen some of the photos today, but would you generally agree with me that the visibility out there in that woodlet there where those girls were found was about as good as it's going to get at any time of the year, because there's no foliage?
Yes, with the foliage being down, yes.
I mean, we're just exercising a little common sense here, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm not off base there when I say that, am I?
No.
And my view of it is, just kind from what I've seen from the photos is there really isn't a lot of undergrowth in that area.
Objection to his view of things, Your Honor. He can ask questions.
I'll withdraw it.
Sustained.
Thank you. Do you agree that there was not a lot of undergrowth out in that woodlet near where those girls were found?
I do.
You agree with that?
I said I do, yes.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't maybe understand you.
I'll speak up.
That's all right. And a lot of it is because there's kind of a high canopy there. The trees are big, and there's just not much on the ground, right?
This February, there wasn't a lot of green undergrowth.
When you were up there at the cemetery, were you able to see down pretty close, maybe to the creek line, from all the way up in the cemetery?
I just don't have a memory of what it viewed like up there. I have memories of parking up there in the cars, but I mean, I walked up and down that hill several times, but I just can't remember.
Okay, one other question that's similar to that concept. On the north side of that, strike that. Let me direct your attention back to that private drive on the north, south side of the creek. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The one that goes under the bridge?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that when you're under that bridge, that drive kind of starts to incline up, back up to the top level there where the home is located?
Yes. Towards the home?
Yes.
Yes, there is an incline.
It's kind of a gradual incline that takes you up to the home?
Yes.
And so as you're standing on that road, would you agree that you have a pretty good view of Deer Creek?
I believe so.
I mean, it's elevated, so it's almost like a kind of stadium view up there, or?
Yes. I'm trying to remember my view from being the opposite side looking up, and I do remember being able to, from the distance I could see people on that road.
Okay, and as you go up that lane, that actually to your left, which would technically be kind of in this direction, I believe, the creek gets closer and closer to the roadway, essentially, doesn't it? It's just way down below. Is that your recollection?
Yes. Near the home? Yes.
Yeah, so like in this area here where the trees are a little darker.
Yes.
Pretty steep, maybe kind of sheer? Is that the word you used earlier?
It is. I didn't go down from the residence part, but especially the private side of the high bridge, where it starts to turn up a little bit before it rounds. That whole area I remember looking at, and it was relatively sheer. It wasn't very wide, but it kind of went straight down.
So when you're on that roadway, as you get closer to that home, you're able to see over into the area where the girls were located a little better because you're more elevated?
Yeah, somewhat.
And you're closer to the creek. You're not looking through all that other foliage, right?
Yes.
1 second, Your Honor. Earlier, Mr. Luttrell offered up some exhibits that were taken from the south side of the bridge, which was from the east side of the south end of the bridge, where there was this slide and the leaves were disturbed. You remember that?
I do.
And did you actually, at any point, try to traverse from the top of that bridge down to that private roadway along that slide at any point, whether it was a week later?
I did.
Would you agree with me? That gravel there is pretty loose gravel?
I mean, it's gravel. I don't know how to.
Well, did you slide when you went?
The gravel is more up where that walking trail is, and I don't remember there's any gravel on the side of that hill.
Okay.
It was like leaves and such.
Do you remember the gravel being kind of loose up there?
Maybe near the edge, the boundary area, but it's not like some strong memory I have.
Did you? Was it your impression when you were out there that area gets quite a bit of foot traffic from people using that trail?
I don't know anything about the locals and the foot traffic up there.
Okay. Did you go down that private lane and ever walk or drive along that lane? It sounds like you did.
I did, yes.
Did you see the tree down there with all the shoes on it? All the shoes hanging from it? You didn't see it?
I don't have a memory of that.
Okay.
I mean, if I did, I don't remember it.
Did you ever talk to anybody to determine how much foot traffic or just traffic that area gets in general from people that are not living on that private property?
That was not my responsibilities. I didn't interview anybody in this case for this type of information.
So the answer's no?
No.
I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Luttrell.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm gonna hand to you what is marked as State's Exhibit 182. Do you recognize that document?
I do.
And what is it?
It's an attachment on one of our RMS reports of a Google Earth map. On this map, it says it was drawn by Sergeant Jim Cody.
And who is Sergeant Jim Cody?
He is now my lieutenant in the laboratory division, so he's currently the supervisor of all the CSIs in the lab division for the state police.
And was he present on February 14th, when you were there at the crime scene?
He was.
And was he the Sergeant Cody who did the 3D imaging that you utilized to do your diagram?
He was.
And does that contain coordinates on it in terms of the longitude/latitude?
It does, yes.
And that appears to be a Google Earth-generated document?
Yes.
I would move the admission of 182. State's Exhibit 182 offered.
I have no objection.
All right. Without objection, 182 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask leave of the court to make copies for the jury for later.
Yes, that would be fine.
But I would like to ask Sergeant Page. I will be pulling up another one of your photos, but at this time, would you just hold that up for the jury? Again, this is that Google Earth document. Would you point out the creek so that the jury can get oriented to that exhibit?
The creek goes from the right-hand edge of the paper, kind of lower center, and then curves upwards to the upper left-hand corner of this piece of paper.
And downstream would be which direction?
The right side of the paper. Well, that's up. I'm sorry, it's flowing from upstream is what I meant to say, going to the left side.
And does this contain the areas in which you testified on cross-exam? You covered both the north side of the creek and I guess what would basically be the south side of the creek north of the bridge. That floodplain area you described, you did a lot of examination of that area?
I did.
And did you, as Mr. Rossi asked you, there is a drop-off there at the area on the end of the bridge, down into this floodplain area. Is that correct?
The drop-off is from that county road, it's kind of like a sheer area, and then it levels off underneath the bridge.
Did you, in your examination in covering that area, did you meander through there to where you could find, for want of a better word, and easier?
Yes, I do.
And did you find such a path of least resistance?
I did.
Did it take you a while to find it?
Not really.
Okay. And do you have any understanding of what type of distance that would mean you traveled on the access road below the bridge, following the path of least resistance, to the area where you were standing on the rocks in the creek in your photo?
Could you restate the question? I'm sorry.
About as convoluted as I can give you. Do you have any idea the distance involved in that path from the access road to the location where you walked to the rocks in the stream?
To that specific location, I can't recall that without looking at notes of measurements that we took. We took a will, I believe it was one of the other CSIs, we had a rough sketch diagram, and they mapped out different will locations. But to go specifically to where I was standing on that rock location, I can't provide that answer without looking at my notes.
Would you by using hang on a second. We'll go ahead and publish this. Would you come down here, please, Sergeant? Do you have a recollection of the route that you took that was across from the access road to the following through the floodplain area to get to the creek?
To that location where I took the photos?
Yes.
It's difficult to see in this just from the shadows, but I think that rock location was kind of up in this area. Indicates, went down to the access road. This whole area here immediately adjacent and winding with that access road, which is labeled as County Road 625 West, is steep, at least it's steeper than the hill it takes to get down to the access road. But when you depart at the center frame bottom of this exhibit, down this hill area, crossing the access road underneath the bridge is relatively level, I presume because of the construction of the bridge. And then, from that point you can really enter anywhere into this area. You can see that there's trees and that's going to prevent some movement, and a lot of dead wood. But if you wanted the path that day, it was kind of hugged the side of this drop-off just on the other side of 625 West. And then I got in that rock location so that I could make those photographs of the locations, just kind of walking straight across. Really this whole area, it's not completely flat, there are trees down and dead wood, but this area looks like a floodplain.
Do you know today how much time it took you to walk once you discovered that route? How much time it took you to get your access to walk to the area of the creek approximately? I
didn't know where I was going, I was just kind of looking for the path of least resistance so I could kind of document the area. Didn't take very long.
All right. Thank you. You may return to your seat. Do you happen to know the approximate width of that creek and the areas between the area of the creek that you were examining when you took the photograph of the creek?
And so I could create a simple diagram, the ones that I created earlier. I referenced this Google Earth document and others that have a distance scale on the bottom and measurements can be obtained from that. I thought it was, to my memory, approximately, was it 100 feet I thought?
Sergeant Page, let's go back to the question you were asked about scavenger and insects, how you have had cases where you utilized entomology and those who are experts in entomology, forensic entomology, to help you establish a timeline or get some information about when a death may have occurred. Is that correct?
May I make a correction?
Yes.
I don't know if it was clear before either. I have used entomologists because there were bugs present, but it's been on maybe 4 or 5 occasions. But for the investigation itself, it was never actually used for time of death. In fact, the last time I never heard back from anybody, but we had other things like videos and cell phone datas that we used, but there were bugs there. I remember Brian Oley, he even assisted me on one of my investigations and he called an entomologist to come. So they've been present, but I don't recall.
On February 14th, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
February 14th, 2017, where was there bug activity, insect activity, going on that you noticed?
Nothing overt that I recall.
The ground zero area where the bodies were located and where the cartridge was ultimately found, who was in that area while you were present at?
When the cartridge was located.
Any time up into the time that the cartridge was located, who was present within that ground zero area that you described to the jury?
From the immediate area of ground zero, the only people that were in that area was Brian Olihe, Dwayne Datsman, and myself until Jim Cody later came to the scene around 3 o'clock, 3:30 I believe, and did his scans of the scene, which took about an hour. I believe Jim Cody stayed until maybe an hour before we left the scene. The only other individual that I recall that came within ground zero was the coroner, J.D. Cree, when it came to the points to start moving the bodies.
And Libby was moved first, is that correct? Her body was moved first?
Yes.
And that had the cartridge had been discovered prior to that, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you wearing gloves while you worked this scene inside the ground zero area?
If I wasn't touching anything, many times I'm not, but when we get closer to the bodies, we take precautions and such. I don't actually recall or have any memories of moving the bodies or handling them other than documenting them. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's just I don't have a strong recollection of that.
When swabs were being taken or items were being collected or bodies were being touched, was that by a gloved hand?
Oh, I'm most certain it would be, but I don't have any memories of me being in that immediate area when that was happening.
Okay. You did not, that was not your role on that day?
I did not do that day.
When the cartridge you indicated that you Sergeant Datsman, while you had alternative light sources goggles, is that the correct word? Goggles?
Yes, glasses, goggles.
Glasses? When you were doing that, that's when he spoke up about him seeing something?
Yes.
And upon his did he then look at the area that he had seen something more closely?
That's my recollection, but you'd have to ask him.
After his discovery, were you aware that those photographs that Mr. Rossi showed you, that they were, in fact, being taken?
Yes.
When Mr. Rossi asked you if it made sense to set the cartridge on a table and take a photograph, would that have served any forensic purpose?
No, other than just to be more supplementary photography.
Would that have given you any more information about the cartridge?
No.
Would what made the most sense about how to handle that cartridge and where it should go once collected?
Can I return to the previous question?
Sure.
Just to be clear, when I say no, I guess what I was thinking of is when you're asking about if I may use an example with fingerprint photography. For fingerprints, I'll potentially photograph it, and we do it in high resolution so an examiner can look at that. And if we're successful in recovering the fingerprint and have it on a lift, those can be compared in addition. But as far as giving detailed scientific, when you say forensic, I think of like an analytical type of data to compare all those, fine striations or tool marks. Our lenses don't have the capabilities of doing that. So when you ask that question, that's how I interpreted it.
This cartridge was taken to the Indiana State Police Laboratory for analysis by at least 2 different departments. Is that your understanding?
I've been told they've been tested, but the details, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Thank you. Your Honor, I don't have.
Okay. Mr. Rossi.
Thank you, Judge. One of your primary jobs at a crime scene is to preserve as much information photographically as possible, right?
Yes.
But you would agree with me, you've seen a cartridge case before, right?
Yes.
One that has a bullet still attached to it, it's unfired?
Yes.
Would you generally agree that they all kind of look the same to the normal human?
I mean, they look similar, yes.
I mean, in this case, let's just get down to business here. It's a Smith & Wesson .40 caliber cartridge case, right?
Okay.
Do you know that? Do you even know that as you sit here today?
I know a cartridge case was collected, I know it was a .40 caliber, but I did not examine this item.
Okay, it was Smith & Wesson. Does that sound right?
I don't know.
I mean, did you read the head stamp in the photo?
It was blurry.
When you looked at the photo?
It was blurry, but I have no reason to dispute what it is, so.
And would you agree with me that if I had a box of those .40 caliber rounds, they would all basically look the same?
Yes.
Okay, and so documenting that round in its full state at that crime scene would assist us in making sure that the same round that might end up in this courtroom is the round that was pulled out of the ground, right?
I think you're asking the wrong individual. I've testified that I had limited knowledge about this information. As far as supplementary pictures, it's completely at the discretion of the CSI.
Okay, well, do you think it would be helpful to know that the round that was plucked out of the ground at that scene is the same round that's going to end up in courtroom? Do you think that would be helpful generally?
Yes.
Okay, and documenting with a photograph the totality of that cartridge would be one way to assist in that process, right?
Could be, yes.
I mean, there's another end to that round that has the bullet's a totally different part of the cartridge, isn't it?
Yes.
There's a case, and then there's a bullet on the end of it, right?
Yes.
And some of those bullets are different colors, right?
Yes.
Or some could be copper, agreed?
Yes.
Some can be Teflon coated?
Okay.
Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Okay, we don't know in this case what that bullet looked like, at this point at least, because we haven't seen the photos, right?
I mean, these are the photographs that you've been presented.
That's the cartridge there you can see, right?
Yes, in this photograph.
Can't see the bullet end of it, can you?
No.
May I, Judge?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Page, let me direct your attention back here to this exhibit, Exhibit T. Oh, it's 120.
182.
182, sorry. Directing your attention back to 182. And there's this line here, this line that's got this 509-foot reference to it, that travels from, would you agree, travels from southwest to northeast?
Yes.
In the photograph? And then, this pin up here on the top right quadrant, this is, basically, ground zero. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so directing your attention to this area here between the line, and then upstream to about parallel with where the pin meets the creek. Are you familiar with that area generally?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that the elevation change from the water to the ground level here it's fairly level? Like there's not a rapid incline there?
As I mentioned in previous state's exhibits, there is an area that's kind of more of a gentle incline.
Okay.
And it's
the path of least resistance, right?
It does appear to be like that lighter section that you're pointing to, yes, but
right in here? Indicates.
Right there, yes.
Okay, it's just a more gentle slope into the water, right?
Correct.
Okay, the elevation changes over here would be much greater?
It does.
And I'm saying over here, farther upstream from ground zero?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then, did you ever take any measurements from the south side of the bridge on top where you saw that, the slide that we talked about earlier? Did you ever take any measurements from there down to the private drive?
I believe somebody did.
Did you?
I did not.
Okay, did you ever take any measurements from the private drive down to the bottom of the floodplain?
Somebody did. I did not.
Okay, you said you carry a Sig Sauer?
I do now.
State police, are those pretty common law enforcement guns?
I believe they are, yes.
Okay, I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Does anybody on the jury have any questions for?
No response or indication from any juror.
All right. Thank you, Sergeant. You may step down. You may call your next witness.